Hello and welcome to this week's Tea Break here at the FT Studios in London, alongside my co-host Yuri Bender. Joining us today is Oskar Aslund, a tech entrepreneur and Chief Strategy Officer of AKJ Group, who has travelled from his HQ in Oslo, Norway to see us today. Oskar, how are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
I've heard you've gone for the coffee today.
I did, we Norwegians, well, first of all, we love our coffee, right? But I'm also not that into, the British tea culture. So I don't know what signals I'm sending if I have, breakfast tea versus mint tea. So I figured just, when you say pick a tea, I pick coffee because, I'm crypto, I'm rebellious by nature.
Excellent, because I've actually gone for the ginger tea today, Oskar, rather than the coffee, to revitalise and maintain the energy levels to help tackle the fast-moving news agenda that we're seeing in recent weeks. Oskar, you're obviously something of a crypto expert, and you've written an opinion piece for us this week about this vibrant sector. Much of the optimism about crypto is based on President Donald Trump's enthusiasm for the sector. But this man, he has a famously short attention span and a habit of turning on his previous allies. Do you feel that it's only a matter of time before the tech bros and the banks eventually fall out with the president?
If you knew how deep the crypto rabbit hole is, you wouldn't be too worried. Like, once you get into that rabbit hole, you do not really get out. I've yet to see that someone kind of gets into crypto, and especially with his mindset of like deregulation, free markets, and that whole kind of rhetoric that rhymes really well with kind of the essence of crypto. So I do not think he will come out of that rabbit hole. I think he will be aligned to a large extent with the crypto sector. It's got a lot of politics, or policies that may go in different directions, and everyone in crypto doesn't really love Trump as a person. He's put himself in the same boat also by issuing these meme coins that he did last week.
One for him and one for Melania as well.
Exactly, yeah, and there'll maybe be more, one for each in the family. But we'll see. But anyway, he kind of, he's in the crypto boat. I don't really see how he can leave that, or why he would suddenly turn around and like kind of go back to like regulating crypto out of existence, or kind of trying to initiate a new, like, what's called a choke point from the regulators.
As a fan of all things tech, Oskar, you might have been interested in an interview with one of our colleagues, Elliot Smither, who conducted with the group head of innovation at Industries Wealth Management, Lydia Persier. She told Elliot that AI is not just tinkering at the edges of wealth management, but will be a total game changer. What sort of innovations are taking place, Oskar, at some laboratories that will be hugely transformative, that we might not be able to see in the next few months or years maybe?
We did actually see it, last week, that there was something brewing in the laboratory somewhere, and it leaked out, and then the tech stocks collapsed. It will change not just business operations, but more than that, right? We at AKJ, we're also having to really reassess, what are the products that we offer? How are they going to look, right? Because I think this article focuses more on, day-to-day business operations. And obviously my article takes that maybe one step further, because you can see in the crypto space, you can see how this is already starting to be experimented with. If you merge this with crypto, you put these LLM agents on chain, meaning they can be made more autonomous, and they will have kind of their own agendas. But I definitely think that all financial actors can gain a lot from just like first, getting this into day-to-day operations, save costs, cut costs. But it's not going to stop there. That's just the start.
You've been looking at some of the investment trends falling into sharp focus after the election of Donald Trump as US president. What are some of the key highlights there?
Ali, let me just have a think as I sip my ginger tea and show off these rather splendid PWM mugs to the camera. And we're all drinking our tea out of the...
We do, yeah, they're great.
And coffee out of the PWM mugs. Very much on message today. As you know, Ali, being a keen football fan, the highlights don't really give you the full picture of the match. They don't give you the full story at all. But in my recent interview with Edmund Shing, the Chief Investment Officer at BNP Paribas Wealth Management, he was very much urging investors to diversify away from those magnificent 7 stocks. And he made that prediction, I think, a week before NVIDIA lost the 600 billion of its value. Absolutely incredible. And not only does he suggest moving into the smaller and mid-cap US stocks, but also geographically to Asia. Oskar, should we have known that the Chinese were building a new business model, which you referred to earlier with DeepSeek? And will this firm, do you feel, become involved in the customizing wealth management strategies as well?
This wasn't really that big of a surprise that it would happen at some point. When what I mean with that happening is that there was others who are using more open source tools, and that the open source movement will catch up with some of the bigger players. So I think definitely the genie is a little bit out of the bottle here. It's going to be really hard for someone to really monetize and kind of have a closed source product that is going to compete with, which is now open source. And also what the Chinese have demonstrated now is this can be done a lot cheaper, right? So you don't really have to have billions of dollars to develop this, that you can be smart about what you do, right? And necessity is the mother of innovation. So basically by putting the Chinese in these situations, they had to work with what they had, and they had to, they couldn't access all the best of the modern chips and so forth. OpenAI had a great lead, but that's not going to last forever. And I think also by using these open source tools, now everyone can build products upon it and do so cheaper and develop on these open source tools. So it's going to be a game changer. It's going to be hard for OpenAI to they were already struggling to monetize this, right? It wasn't that easy to build a successful business model around these LLMs. So yeah, it's going to be even harder now.
And we have another piece by Paul Jackson, head of asset allocation at Invesco, who suggests US tech names have been overvalued and that European and Asian economies and stocks are much more likely to benefit from a global growth upsurge in 2025. Do you agree, Oskar?
Looking at the crypto tech sector, I definitely see that places like Singapore and also like Hong Kong, and there's a lot of, and Dubai, there are a lot of both money and talent moving to these areas where the Chinese, from a crypto standpoint, is different because the Chinese government hasn't really endorsed crypto, so they basically kicked out a lot of because there were a lot of big actors coming out of China, right? Binance, for example, but they have now moved elsewhere. So it's really difficult to say about China. It's like putting, again, coming from the crypto side, I would compare it to putting your assets on a sketchy centralized exchange. You don't really know if your money is there, right? Or if they will be rug pulled. So it's definitely, everyone who's investing in China needs to do so with that kind of caution. Asia is big, right? Asia is not just China, and there's a lot of other interesting kind of hubs, especially Singapore.
Indeed, and Ali, you've been writing quite a bit about Asia recently. You've been looking at India, you've been looking at Singapore also, that Oskar mentioned. What do you feel is the persuasive about Asia at the moment? Is it the demographics which will boost consumption and make the investments look more attractive?
Yeah. Well, HSB analysts, highlighted overweight positions in India, Japan, Singapore, to capitalize on strong domestic growth while managing geopolitical risks. And HSBC expects India's GDP to grow 6.7% in 2025, supported by rural demand and, as you said, structural tailwinds. And of those structural tailwinds is a technology boom. And Oskar, is there a whole new generation of rising tech champions in Asia that will eventually challenge the Mag 7 in the US?
I definitely think there will be a lot of rising stars coming out of Asia. And I would also think not only about the core kind of tech, but also think about the cultural vibes and the memes coming out of Asia. Like, just look at what's been produced from South Korea, Squid Game, right? Massively popular,
Especially
really
with
weird.
my son.
I mean, K-pop, right? We wouldn't do those type of things, but they really vibe with like the new younger generations, right? That's a signal that something is brewing there, and we may look at it with, you know, traditional eyes, doing kind of analytics on the PE valuations and so forth, but we may miss something else, which is like the big narrative, which is, you know, the kind of cultural influence, and everyone's been, you know, we're used to looking at to the USA, right? Everything, all culture comes from the USA, you know, in recent history, really. But it feels like it's different now.
Yes, and Ali, we always like to have something brewing
definitely.
in the tea break, as Oskar mentioned.
Definitely, on a weekly basis, that is. Oskar, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today.